No, thank you for having me on the show. I've listened to you often.
We need all the help we can get, sir. Thank you. Let's start with your GRIT, Government Reform in Transportation Act. The first thing I'm looking at, well, it's right at the top. By 2025, Louisiana will have 0 state funds available for highway construction. And the reason you say is because DOTD uses all the gas tax money for their operational costs. So I guess the first part of your plan is to move some money around from DOTD's operation to pay for roads. And do you think DOTD and Sean Wilson might fight you on that a little bit?
I'm sure they will. They're already, you've seen in articles that's been published already in response to our plan and our proposal in this GRID Act. You've seen that very thing already proposed. But look, it's a challenge. Everyone agrees, and as I travel the state and I talk to constituents, everyone says, well, how we spend the money now? Where's our money been going? Well, this didn't just happen. This has happened over the last almost 4 decades of legislatures and governors not willing to step forward and do the right thing. And now it's grown into a problem that you can't just fix immediately. And when you talk about where is the money at, that money you just spoke about that's going to administration and salaries, and you got 5 cents it takes of the current 16 cents to pay for administration. Now, when I say that, that does include our highway barns that you see in each district, but we also have another 1.5 cents that goes to retirement debt. So you're talking $150 to $200 million. And you say, well, why don't we just take that out of the general fund like it was supposed to happen in 1984? Well, because then you're going to have to cut some other service, which is either hospitals or education, because that's the way the budget is set up. So you just run into one problem after another. And, when we talk about real proposals, and mine is probably the best one we've had, because I'm saying let's bring them to the legislature and hold them accountable for their spending. And currently we do not do that. And that's what I'm proposing. The best piece of reform is to get them in front of the Appropriations Committee. And we're not saying we won't give them money when they need it. We just say, show us where you want to spend it.
When you say hold them accountable for their spending, are they wasting some of my money?
Look, I don't like to point fingers. Look, they operate on less money now than they did before. You got to remember, Aaron, that they had 9,000 employees up until about 12 to 15 years ago, and since then they have been reduced to less than 4,000. So there has been reductions. And look, you and I would have to agree. Can you imagine when they were operating with 9,000 employees, and you wonder why we have so much retirement debt built up? Because now we're going to be paying for those poor decisions by, and I hate to keep saying it, but by previous legislatures decades ago. That debt, we're going to carry that debt for another 1.5 to 2 decades.
Excuse me, pardon me, Mr. Jack. You talk about shifting $1.5 billion from administrative to road repair and stuff like that. And my first thought is, $1.5 billion. $1.5 billion is a lot of money. But on the other hand, you don't think that's enough because you want to increase the gas tax, right?
Well, that shift of $1.5 billion is over 10 years. Now, we have a $26 billion road problem. $14 billion of it is backlog. It's just preservation. It's roads and bridges right now that need to be replaced. I mean, you got bridges that are over 60 years old, and you can't even drive a pickup truck across them, much less a school bus full of children. And that's where we're at. You go down into these rural highways, and you look at the posted signs on most of those bridges. They're down to 10, 15 tons. I mean, which realistically, you're barely able to get a school bus of children across those bridges now.
Walk us through what your
devastating infrastructure.
Walk us through what your gas tax, how much it would be, over how long. Give us the details.
So my proposal is, starting in the first year, we start with 10 cents. That each penny is worth $30 million. So that would be an automatic infusion of $300 million the first year, which does several things. It now would make us It would now put us in a position where we could go out and reach our full federal dollars that often we leave money on the table. What other states have done, our neighboring state, Arkansas, they just passed a 0.5 cent sales tax for gas. And in doing so, it makes them eligible to go out and get federal dollars that we're not, that we're leaving on the table. And that's your tax dollars. That's your federal tax dollars that are being left on the table. Every other year for 10 years, you would have 2 cents. And this would grow to 22 cents over the next 10 years. So by 2033, the full 22 cents would be in place. And look, at the rate of inflation, this original 16 cents, if they would have put a CPI index on it, we would be at exactly where we're going to end up then, at 38 cents. Now, if you add the 4 cents for the time project that was passed in 1989, you'll be at 42 cents. But that is spread out over beginning next year over until 2033.
Jack, you're a Republican pushing a tax increase. You're not supposed to do that, man.
Well, look, I'm also a businessman that understands if I can't get from point A to point B with goods and services, then I'm not going to be in business very much longer. And what we have to realize is you have businesses, and I'm hearing from more and more of them. That's why I got involved in this. Look, I voted against the gas tax every time it ever came up in my first term. Would not support it because there was no reform measures in it. There was no audit measures. I believe that's one of the reasons I added the audit piece to it is, in business, you're audited. I mean, you review, you have an accountant. He does a thorough job of making sure you're accounting for every dollar. And I want to do the same thing. And I think that we need to do that for the public and to show them where the money's going. But as a business person, look, I know the challenge is going to be, I own big trucks. I buy diesel fuel by the thousands of gallons every week. So I know what this is going to cost me. But look, I know what it's costing us economically. All the way back to Ronald Reagan to even President Trump. President Trump had a proposal to do something with our infrastructure. Unfortunately, he just couldn't get the movement to do it. Look, and I know that in business, if it's costing you X amount of dollars to get your goods and services to and from the market, and those costs go up because now, like me, I can't get across a bridge. I have to drive around it. That's increased cost. Mm-hmm. And, that comes from somewhere. And so it would be more economical for us to adjust our gas tax. We're the 7th lowest gas tax in the nation right now. And even in 2033, even if we pass this fully right now, in today's dollars, we would still only be around 27, 28 best in the country in our gas tax.